Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? All right. You know what? I'm using a new old platform to stream to my YouTube channel, and I actually kind of like it. Hmm. Anywho, welcome everybody. Good morning. This morning, I am talking about the election. I'm not talking about it from a political viewpoint. No, I'm talking about it from a different viewpoint. One, I am Luciana Turner. I am a government contracting specialist. I want to talk about the election from the viewpoint of how it affects government contractors and businesses. Now, as of right now, the president elect is Donald Trump. And we know what he ran his platform on. He ran his platform on tax breaks, border wall. He somebody start every time I went decided to go live, somebody want to text me. He ran his platform on tax break, the border wall. He ran his he wanted to make certain changes to the IRS, some economic changes, things of that nature. And I wanted to talk about that, but I also want to talk about this. I'm listening to and read some comments. Can I tell you why the real reason Kamala Harris lost the election? Can I share that with you guys? And it's the reason some of you are losing your contracting proposals. Here it is. You're not answering questions. I said it. The same reason Kamala Harris lost the election is the same reason some of you are not winning your contracting proposals. You're not answering questions. People during the election cycle, their pain point was the economy. Their pain point was illegal immigration. She wanted to talk about Trump is bad. She wanted to talk about these cases that were being brought up against Trump. She wanted to talk about all this other stuff. It wasn't answering the question of her audience. The same reason why some of you can't win a proposal is or a contract is the same reason why Harris did not win the election. Your audience was looking for a particular answer. They were looking for you to address an issue that never got addressed. Therefore, you were not selected for the job. It is just that simple. It is just that plain. Anybody feels differently, please drop a question in the chat. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear what you have to say. Because people want to act as though there's this big shock that she wasn't elected. And I'm sitting here saying I wasn't shocked. She wasn't elected for the job because she never spoke to her audience. The same reason some of you aren't winning proposals. There was when an RFP is issued, the RFP says, I have a need. And that need is XYZ. When she was running for the high office, this country said we have a need to fix the economy, handle illegal immigration, to deal with various other issues. And there was a hierarchy. It was stated what that hierarchy was. Instead of dealing with the hierarchy of issues, I don't know what she was thinking. Then in the proposal, it tells you, tell me who your team is. When she chose her vice president, guess what? A lot of people said, no, not a good pick. But she rode with that pick anyway. There was some stronger vice presidential picks. There were people she could have picked that would have said, you know what, I don't like her, but because she picked a strong second, I'll vote for that ticket. She picked somebody to be her vice presidential pick that just damaged her ticket even more. Now, there are people who are going to disagree with this assessment. Can I tell you I don't care? I'm just saying, good morning. I am just saying the reason she lost the job is the same reason some of you can't win a proposal. You didn't answer the question, and the team you pulled together didn't team. So so if your team isn't teaming and you're not answering the question, how do you think you're going to win the job? Thank you. She lost Pennsylvania because of that vice presidential pick. So I'm sitting here listening to people talk, and I'm like, if I can see this, and I'm not a political pundit, why aren't you? And then I said to myself, there are people who are in government contracting, not winning proposals, and they're doing the exact same thing. Not answering questions, and your team's not teaming. You may be the leader of the team, but your team, your support staff, is supposed to cover the areas that you are not strong in. They're supposed to cover the areas you cannot cover. If you're picking a team because you're afraid they're outshining you, then that is poor leadership on your part. If you are picking a team that is not balancing your leadership capabilities, then that is poor leadership of your part. And am I not, this is not making sense. So there are some of you not winning government contracts for the same reason she did not win 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Same reasons. You're not answering the question of your audience. She did not talk about the economy. She did not talk about illegal immigration. And when she did attempt to answer a question, it was a non-answer. And there's ways to not answer a question because you don't have an answer that makes sense, even though you didn't answer. She wasn't even good at that, which is where a strong number two comes in. Let me tell you, you can feel however you want to feel about Trump. This is not a political post. This is how you can take what's going on in the political realm and apply it to your business. You can say whatever you want to say about Trump. What he did this time, that was better than he did the first time. He picked a vice presidential pick that was a strong, eloquent fighter and knew how to fight with his words. When that man did interviews, he said, come on now, I'm not going to let you misspeak. Come on now, we're going to get back to the middle. Come on now, that's not what he said. He said this. And every time they tried to overtalk him, he said, we're going to stay on topic. This is what he said. And every time they cut across him, okay, yes, but he said this. And then he finally said in one interview, he said, now, if you're not going to let me talk, why am I here? You can feel however you want to feel about Trump. He corrected some of his errors from his first go around. True leadership is making corrections. That's true leadership. That's how some of you are not winning proposals. That's how some of you are not winning your business. Stop doing things on what you like and don't like and start picking up the lessons. He even said there are things he's doing this time around he didn't do the first time around because he learned the lessons. People are sitting up here who are so-called professionals trying to figure out why Harris didn't win the presidency. And I'm not shocked. And I'm not even a political pundit. Excuse me, you guys on Tick'em-a-Talk. I hit the camera by accident. I'm not even a political pundit. And I can see why she didn't win. She didn't answer the questions the audience had. She didn't step up and at any time exhibit leadership. And then she allowed her team to say, well, she didn't have authority. Wait a minute. Then why am I voting for you? You can't argue, vote for me, and then I get authority. No, you have to say, I'm going to exercise what I do have and leverage what I can so that when you put me in the office, I'm going to exponentially accelerate. There was just too many ways she dropped the ball. And we ain't even gonna talk about how she circumvented to get, and even that was a fear tactic. The way she even got the nomination was because they were so afraid of a repeat of the 1970s riot, they gave her the nomination instead of doing the vote at the DNC. And yes, I am serious. And do you not realize your statement is why she didn't win the election? You cannot argue that the number 2 person in this country does not have authority and then want to say, when I become number 1, I get authority. That's how she didn't win the election. You get what I'm saying? You can't argue when I become number 1, I get authority, even though I'm number 2. When number 1 said I gave her equal authority. You understand what I'm saying? When you pay attention. Number 2, the VP learns how to leverage. She's been in politics a long time. She knows how to talk. She knows how to wheel and deal. She knows who has authority. She knows who has the keys. So she knows how to talk to people. And even if she doesn't have the power, she knows who does. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes just showing up to say, I can't do anything, but I'm here to listen, is all people want from you as a leader. Period. And then you're wondering why she didn't win. Yes, I am serious. Get out of your feelings and get into an analysis of what's going on. If she is serious about running in 4 years, this is what she should be doing right now. Sitting down and say, where did I go wrong? 1, she didn't listen to her audience. Her audience said, these are my pain points. My leg is broken. I'm paying $5 for a loaf of bread. I'm paying $1,800 rent on a 2-bedroom apartment. And what are you telling me? You're telling me that you're a woman. Okay, I can see that. VP Cheney actually led the way and led negotiations. VP Biden was the head and got people together on both sides of the aisles to get key legislation passed through Congress. I may not have the power, but I have the power of negotiations. That's what the vice president does. They negotiate. Leadership is not about being in charge and saying, doing things. Being in charge and leadership is having the ability to get people to the table so that they can talk. That's it. That's all. Sometimes, see, this is how people do not know or understand how things go. It isn't about doing everything. People don't understand. You see, when you're the VP, you don't pass all the bills. But as the VP, I get this person over here on the phone, and I get this person over here on the phone, and then I get them on a three-way call, and then I get them to say, "Look, I know you have key differences, but this is what we're supposed to do." And then those two people go back to their people. That's leveraging influence. So when she got on the campaign trail, she could say, "I leveraged influence." They could get up and say she leveraged influence. The VP leverages influence. That's what people wanted to hear about, how she leveraged influence. That's how she lost 1,600. That's what people wanted to hear. People wanted to hear, not necessarily that she was going to get in there and do everything. People wanted to hear that she had the ability to deploy people who could get the job done. That's how she lost the election. Some of you have companies. People wanted to know why she didn't make policies. President Biden said he gave her authority over certain things. And when she was asked about that, no answer. So you had a president who gave her authority that she didn't even speak to. And then they're sitting up here talking about, well, we don't know how she lost. That's how she lost. You had a president who punted to her. She was trying to run an incumbent ticket without talking about being an incumbent. it didn't make sense. So this is the tie it all together. This is how people are in business and are failing. You're not talking to your audience. What does your audience want to hear? Your audience wants to hear how you're the solution. And she was running a ticket, and her ticket was to tell the government. She had one job, and what that was to tell the nation how she was the solution. And what did she do with that job? She was telling the nation how the other person wasn't. Okay, that was good. Okay, he's not the solution. Well, then why should anybody vote for you as the solution? Because all you did was tell people not to vote. You either solution or you're not. Because everybody doesn't do the anybody but him. And I think she relied too much on the anybody but him methodology. And there were too many people who were sitting in the middle who opted either to not vote I'm gonna go here. There was never a complete police immunity on the ticket on the plate. So that's an unnecessary prayer because nobody ever said that. That was fear mongering that was put out there. Nobody said give police complete immunity. It was thrown out there to put people in a state of fear because people in a Trump never said that. People in a hyper emotional state vote against their best wishes. Nobody said police will have complete immunity. He said qualified immunity, two different things. Qualified immunity says if they're acting within the confines of their duty. If they're acting within their duty, they're exempt. If they're found to be outside of their duty, they go to jail. So there were never any talk. He did not stop it. I'm not wrong. I want you to send it to me where he said that they would have immunity for everything they did. You make the statement, you prove it. I'm not going to argue this point with somebody who's in their feelings and not in their facts. Go prove it. Because I understand what qualified immunity is. You obviously don't. Moving on. Anyway, but that's an example. People operating under misinformation. And then when people went back and checked the record and they found out, wait a minute, this isn't correct. They were like, okay, so what are you going to do? When people had questions about her track record in California, because I had questions about it, those questions were never answered. Once again, there are people there are people right now who had questions about certain things about her record while she was prosecutor in California that wanted her to answer those questions. They were never answered. That would have given them the comfort they needed to vote. Just like when you're responding to an RFP, the government wants assurances. They want that you are the answer for them. So you have to answer the mail. And if you don't answer, they don't have the assurances you can do the job. They have questions. Sometimes they come back for round 2. When they come back for round 2, the question is, we see this, we know this. Can you answer to that? If you don't answer those questions, you will not receive the contract. She didn't answer those questions, so she did not receive 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It is just that simple. So now that people are talking about why she didn't receive the job, it's the same reason why people are not winning. I'm not muting oppositions. I told that person to go find the proof that what I said was wrong. They didn't want to do that. Then you're not going to sit in here and flood my comment section with nonsense. Period. In the discussion. So go find where he said what they said, or stop spamming my comment section. And this is my platform. Go start your own live and say whatever you want in there. You cannot prove your statement. So you're spamming my comment section with nonsense. And I will mute anybody who's in my comment section. Thank you. So with that said, if you're not answering the mail, if you don't answer the question, if you cannot support your statements, if I say the apple is red, you say it's blue, and I say prove it, then it's up to you to prove it. It's just that simple. And that's just the way things go. So when we start to analyze or do a debrief of this whole scenario, and then people wonder why you're not winning a contract, you're not winning the RFP, and we do a comparative analysis, and we compare it to why the election went the way the election went, there are parallels. You have to, one, understand your audience. Who are you talking to? Two, what questions are they asking? Three, you have to answer the question whether you want to answer it or not. Four, support your answer. Five, when you support your answer, then you have to make sure the team that you're coming with to support you, support your leadership style, covers the holes where you can't cover, because guess what? You don't do all things well. That's just it. That's all. So they have to lift you up where you are falling in certain areas. They have to ensure that they are good in things that you're not good in. They have to challenge you. There are areas where you're not good, or you may stumble and fall. You being a leader means that the people who are on your team have to question you. And when they question you, they have to come back with facts. And then you have to say, okay, I see your facts, and we're either going to stay the same or we're going to make adjustments. And then there are times that as the leader, you say, this is it, this is all, this is my platform, and we're going to run it this way, but you have to assume the responsibility of this is my platform. So to sum it all up, people are wondering why she didn't win. And I'm saying it's not rocket science that she didn't win. Now, the next step is what you're going to do about it. The next step is what are we going to do about it? Now we're going to do a total flip, and we're just going to get into the heart of the matter. As a government contractor, the president-elect has already put forth certain endeavors he said he wants to do in the first 90 days of his administration, which begins in January. Assuming that the next 60 days goes well. Assuming the next 60 days go well and we don't have any unnecessary nonsense that goes on. In January, when he takes the oath, his first 90 days is going to be radical. As a government contractor, are you going to be ready to take advantage of it? As a business owner, are you going to be ready to take advantage of it? These are times that people are going to be a little nervous. However, if you stay focused and make a plan, you can stay ahead of what's coming. You can your business will survive. Your business will thrive. I don't see, and this is the thing, in business and government contracting, you can't, I'm not going to say you can't be emotionally tied, because people are emotionally tied to all of this. It just is what it is. I know I'm also live on TikTok for those of you on my YouTube platform. And quite frankly, I blocked somebody because he disagreed with me, he was just going to put clown emojis all through my platform. That's cool. I blocked him. And I blocked him for this reason. Whether you agree or whether you disagree, because I never told anybody how I voted. I was performing an analysis. Whether you agree or disagree, you should never disrespect. And if all you can do is clown emojis because you disagree with what's being said, then you're not mature enough for the conversation. In business, you have to maintain the integrity of your business. That means everybody doesn't want to accept all of you at all times or at any time. That means when you speak in business, everybody's not going to like what you have to say. And that is all right. That is something you're going to have to accept. You have two choices: speak it anyway or be silenced. When you make business decisions, as long as they are ethical, that means you're making decisions in the light of day or in the darkness that you would make in the light of day. Okay, that's fine. And you can't explain how he stole the election, but that's okay. That's how you feel. That's how you feel. We're going to move on. Um, and as long as you're compliant, you're following the rules and regulations within your industry and with the state, within the state and the federal realms, that's how you conduct business. That's it. That's all. And ethics and compliance play key roles in business, especially in government contracting. Having a plan is key. Following the plan is key, and understanding that you have to adjust the plan as you execute it. Write the vision and make it plain. A lot of you in business are running with plans that are in your head, and you're so attached to the plan. When you see it going astray, you still won't change it. And I really believe that was part of Harris's problem. She saw her plan or her campaign strategy wasn't working. And instead of regrouping and re-strategizing, she doubled down on it. And she brought people out to help her, which were heavy hitters. Obama, heavy hitter, heavy influencer. Different other people, heavy hitters, heavy influencer. But if they're coming to throw influence behind something that is already not working, it was wasted influence. So when you have a plan that isn't working, when you have a strategy that isn't working, you need to, one, get an expert that you're going to listen to and readjust the strategy. I personally believe that if she had somebody that was mentoring her, she either wasn't listening to them or they was giving her bad advice. One of the two. She either wasn't listening to the advice or they was giving her bad advice. One of the two. What I'm going to tell you about the Trump campaign that I saw when I compared this time to the last time, he listened and made changes. He evaluated and he made changes. Those are the same things you have to do in business. You evaluate and you make changes. You say, this didn't work the first time, so I have to do things differently the second time. That's the same in politics, and that's the same in business. It's the same in contracting. And if you don't know where it's falling apart, that's when you get a mentor. That's when you get a coach. I have mentors and I have coaches, and they've helped me and they are helping me make changes. The first thing my marketing coach told me is be authentic. She was like, stop trying to pacify people. They're either going to like you or they're not going to like you. Period. So when I speak on my platforms, I just speak. You like it, you like it. You don't, you don't. People who are so caught up in their political viewpoint couldn't get the message of what I was trying to say. Because this wasn't a political stance. This was an analogy using the election. And I'm going to use it again. You can't get the job if you don't answer the question, because you lose sight of your audience. And when your strategy isn't working, adjust it. And if you can't adjust it, you hire a professional to come in and make some changes, but you have to listen to the person you hire. Does that make sense? And if you're not willing to listen to them, then why did you hire them? Build a team that's strong, because sometimes they might not like you, but they like your team. They might not be sold on you, but they're sold on your team. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of times people lose because the team they built was weak. And I believe that was part of the problem with her getting to 1600. The team that she was building was weak. Learn how to leverage influence. I talked about that during my Contracting and Business Week. I'm going to talk about it again during Contracting Business Week in 2025. Leverage influence. Your influence, their influence, your strategic partnerships. Learn how to leverage influence. Learn when to leverage influence. And understand there are times when you have to adjust, and there are times when you just have to say, you know what, this isn't going to work. And always perform a strategic debrief. When you come to the end of the road, that proposal's been submitted, there is a next phase. There is a next step. There is a next stage you should be preparing for. It's not over. Even if you don't win it this time, there's a next go around. Usually everything in government contracting has a part two. There's a recompete. You just have to decide if you're in it to win it. That's what you have to decide. Are you in it for the next go around? And if you decide you are, you really have to debrief. What did I do wrong this time? What kind of team do I have to build so that I can win it the next time? And if my team is right, do I need to reposition some people on the team? Because you can have a tight team, but you have some players in the wrong positions. You can have some people in the wrong position. You can have a tight team. You have qualified people. However, you can have some people in the wrong positions for that team. So you may need to restructure or reorganize for the next go round. And that's fine. But you will only know that if you perform an analysis. And when you perform the analysis, honey, you got to get out your feelings. And sometimes to get out your feelings, you have to hire somebody to come in and do the analysis for you. Because you so in love with the fact you did it right, you just missing the glaring, obvious ways you went wrong. I mean, it is obvious you went wrong because you didn't win. So you bring somebody in to do the debrief. You bring in someone such as myself to do the debrief, who could say, you know, you went to answer this question, but you didn't hit the answer. You never answered this question. Your team was structured a little wrong. You gave a highlight over here and you should have went in depth, and you went in depth over here and you should have gave a highlight. Over here, you shouldn't have answered at all. And over here, you shouldn't have showed up. Over here, you should have showed up. There's just so many ways when you sit back and you look at this election cycle and you compare it to your government contracting business, there are parallels. You can run the analysis and see the parallels. And when you run the analysis and say, wow, if they had did this, and then you sit there and say, wait a minute, if I do the same thing in my business, what kind of success can I have? Make some changes. That's all I'm saying. I didn't even intend to stay on this long, but I just wanted to share that. But the main thing you have to do is get out your feelings. Remember, when you're answering anything, you have an audience. And it doesn't matter how you feel about it. You have to be responsible, and you have to be responsive to your audience. You have to. Now, for those of you who are just jumping in, I'm getting ready to sign off. The full replay is on my YouTube channel. I basically was talking about why Harris didn't win the election. And the reason she didn't win the election is the same reason a lot of people are not winning in business and they're not winning in contracting. She lost sight of her audience. She didn't answer the questions that they needed answering. And the team she built wasn't a winning team to get this part of the job done. Now, I'm going to come back a little later, because even at this, the team that will get you through part one isn't the team for part two. Because President-elect Trump, okay, the team that got him to president-elect is not the transition team. We're going to talk about that, because the transition team is different. And then the transition team is not the team that is going to take him through year one of his administration. Now, the transition team in government contracting, that's your ramp-up phase. That's after you've won the contract. It's something called a ramp-up. That's that time where you got to hit the ground running, and you've got to implement some things, and you got to put some people in places, and then you didn't realize that there's some people you didn't even consider that you need, and you've got to fill them spots really quickly. That's the ramp-up phase. That's the transitioning. We're going to talk about it a little later. Matter of fact, we might probably talk about that tomorrow. So there are a lot of parallels to government contracting. That's fine. He's my prez. If you're an American, he's your prez too, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. But I'm just running the analogy between the presidential phases in government contracting. I do have an ebook called Stages of Government Contracting. And I do have a book that I put out, Keys to Government Contracting. Check that out. Check both of them out. Powerful information on that. Anybody who's just joining now, you can check out my full analogy of where I talked about this election in relation to government contracting. Because I'm here to tell you how the election was lost is how a lot of people are losing government contracts. You have to keep your audience in mind. There are strategies. If your strategic plan isn't there, you have to pivot. And there is places I'm like, I know she was married to this plan, but she should have switched. The plan wasn't working. She should have switched. And running the campaign on I'm a woman and I'm black wasn't working. She should have switched. There were questions that needed to be answered that wasn't getting answered. She should have switched. Government contracting, a lot of you not winning contracts because you're not answering the question of the audience. Are you answering the mail? The RFP gives you a list of questions. Are you answering them? And if you're not answering them fully or to your audience's satisfaction, and you're leaving them on the fence, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to choose another person, or they're not going to choose anybody and just leave the fulfillment unfulfilled. And in this election, there are a lot of people who said they just didn't vote because they couldn't go either way. And there are people who were just left in that, they were just left in the middle because they weren't given anything to go either way with. We're going to talk about that. But anyway, this wasn't a political conversation. This was just drawing parallels so that you can see the errors, perform the debriefs, and apply it in your business. We'll talk together. It'll be tomorrow because I doubt I'll go live later on tonight. I'm Luciana Turner, your host, and I will see you guys later. Have a good one. All right, guys. I'll see you later on for Contracting Chatter. You know how to join me or reach me. You can send me an email or send me a message. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the chat, and I always go back and read my messages. So I will see you guys the next time I go live, which will be tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.